Hola! This is the first lesson in decimals. So today we're going to be doing the sums and differences of decimals. In other words, adding and subtracting decimals. So if you could open those notes, and there's also a PDF assignment that goes with it, as well as a short that quiz formative assessment. So the learning target for today is I can add and subtract decimals. So while you were getting that open, if you've not done so already, I just want to remind you, some of you have still not taken or become proficient on fractions. So we're also going to be spending time this unit practicing our fraction skills. So the first question I would like to ask is, we've been working with fractions, but when would it be better to convert fractions into decimals before adding or subtracting? So for me, I have a much easier time adding or subtracting decimals than fractions every time, but it's especially when it's something easy like this to convert, or when the denominators are very not the same, and so I'd be working with very large numbers. It would be easy to convert. So I want you to, and we've talked about this many times, to get into the habit of estimating what your answer will be, which seems, I know, to some of you very silly, an added step, but you should always be checking to see if your answer is reasonable. Some of you just put anything down without thinking, is this reasonable? Is this what I should be getting? Something close to what I should be getting. So for me to estimate this, I might round this number to 25. So this first one to 25. And the second one is very close to, this is closer to 1, so it's 375, but we have an extra 2. So I should be getting close to something about 402. Oops, I wrote 404. 402. So I estimate. So now, after I do my work, I can look back. If I don't get something close to 402, I know I did something desperately wrong. For this one, converting to decimals is very easy because these are tenths and 100ths. We can just write the decimal like we say it. So 25 and 3/10 looks just like that. And I'm adding it to 376 and 77 100ths. So for these, again, very easy to convert to decimals. The important part, and you can watch video after video after video, but the important part of adding and subtracting decimals is to line up the decimal points, because this is the way we keep our place value in order. We don't want to add tenths to 100ths or 100ths to ones. We want to add tenths to tenths and 100ths to 100ths and ones to ones. So we line up our decimals. So I have 25.3 and 376.77, and I'm going to add those together. And yes, you could have written the 376.77 on top. That would have been just fine. Now I see that I have right here, I don't have a number. So I'm going to put in a place value of 0, just so I remember there really is a place value there. And I'm going to add down just like normal. 0 plus 7 is 7. 3 plus 7 is 10, so I have to carry up that 1. Now here's where my decimal points are, so I'm just going to carry them right down. 6 plus 5 plus 1 is 12, and I'm going to carry that up. 7 plus 1 plus 2 is 10, so I'm going to carry that up. 402.07, and so again we just added, carrying the decimal down. So we did all of these steps, but now that I have this, I want to see, is it a reasonable answer? Well, when we guesstimated, we came up with 402. So yes, it is very likely that this is a reasonable answer. So I'm sticking with it. All right. So here, estimate first as a way to check for reasonable answers later. So I have 426 minus 275. So if I do that subtraction, I'm going to have to borrow here, and it's easy to borrow with whole numbers. So that's a 5 and a 1. So I'm thinking my estimate, I should come up with approximately 151. So now we're going to convert it to decimals. These are not as easy because they're not in tenths or 100ths or 1000ths, but they are easy to convert because we can multiply this by 2 to get to the tenths. So now I have 426 and 2/10 minus 275. Well, this is 1/2, and we know 5/10 is the same thing as 1/2. So now I'm going to convert to decimals, and I'm going to line up my decimals. So 426, I'm going to rewrite that, 6. And 2/10 is a 2 in the tenths place, minus, and remember we're lining up our decimal, 275.5. And now I subtract down. As normal, that means that you might have to borrow. It's easier to borrow when there's a decimal than when there is a fraction. So here, 2 minus 5 doesn't work, so I'm going to have to borrow from this 6 1 whole. So I put that 1 whole there, so now I have a 0.7. 5 minus 5 is 0. 2 minus 7, I can't do that without borrowing, so I'm going to make that a 3 and borrow 1 whole. So that's a 5. And 3 minus 2 is 1. So I came up with 150.7, or 150 and 7/10. So when I go back to see if it's reasonable, I guesstimated my 151. That is very close, so I do believe this is a reasonable answer. All right, what about word problems? I put our kind of cheat sheet over here, estimate, convert, line up, add or subtract, over there for us to follow. But what if it's a word problem? Samantha and her friends are going on a road trip that is, and I like drawing it out, 245 and 7/50 miles long. They have already driven 128 and 53/100. So we're looking for how much further they have to go. So that's a subtraction problem. So I'm first going to estimate 245 minus 128. 245 minus 128. We could even round this to the tenths, but I'm going to leave it like this. So that is 7 and 9. So it's right around 100 miles. About 97 miles is what I'm thinking would be a reasonable answer. So now I'm going to convert. So I have my 245. Now 7/10 is easy to convert. 7/50. 50 goes into 100 2 times. So now I have 14/100. So 245 and 14/100 minus 128, and now this time the denominator is already in 100s, 53/100, just like this. So we can subtract down. 4 minus 3 is 1. Here we're going to have to borrow. Maybe I'll change to a different color. I'm going to borrow 1 whole. 1 whole. So now I have 11 minus 5 is 6. 4 minus 8 doesn't work, so I have to do another borrowing of a whole. 14 minus 8 is 6. 3 minus 2 is 1. 2 minus 1 is 1. So I came up with 116.61. So what happened? What happened? This seems a little far off to my 97. So I'm going to check. Was my estimate wrong? Or was my subtraction wrong over here? So 245 minus 128. 3, so that is a 7, a 1. Oh, I did not have to borrow, so it was 117. So my estimate was wrong. But see, I double checked and I made sure which one was right and which one was wrong. So I agree that this is going, now that I rechecked my estimate, I agree that that's probably the correct answer. All right, next problem. Ben needs to replace two sides of his fence. One side is 367 and 9/100ths, and the other side is 329 and 3/10. How much does he need to buy? We can see that these two sides together, that means we're adding. So if I'm estimating 367 plus 329, that is about 696. Again, if I did that arithmetic correctly. So I'm going to see if how close I am. Jeez. Okay, so now we have to convert, and this first one is very easy because it's already in tens or 100s. So it is 367 and 9/100ths. Now be very careful. Some people put, a very common mistake is putting the 9 right away, but that would be 9/10. So 9/100ths, this is the 100ths column. 329 and 3/10, 329, 3/10. The first one after the decimal point is the tenths, so we're going to put the 3 there. Since we are adding, so that's important to remember what you're doing. Since we have not a digit in the hundredths for the second number, we're going to put a 0. So 9 plus 0 is 9. 0 minus 3 is 3. We're going to carry down that decimal. 7 minus 9 is 6. We're going to carry up that 1 because it was 16, and so we had to carry up the 1. 6 plus 2 is 8 plus 1 is 9, and then 3 plus 3 is 6. So we have our estimate is 696, and once we added them together it was 696.39, so that does seem reasonable. One thing I completely forgot about until right this moment is, remember, these are application problems, so we're not going to just put our number. We're going to tell what it means. How much fence does he need? This is in meters, so it would be, he would need 696.39 meters. And here we were talking how much further, and our answer is going to be in miles. So let's not forget that. All right, this is where you try it on your own. Please take a moment now that we went through some problems and see if you can highlight the important parts, decide if you're adding, subtracting, and see if you can estimate, convert, add or subtract, and then answer the question. And then come back and check your work. So again, be engaged, stop the video, try both of these, and then come back and check. All right, let's see how you did. I'll walk through these problems even though I have it out. The first thing I did was estimate. 4 and 4/5 is about 5. 3 and 1/10 is about 3. So I added them together to get my estimate. And then I converted. So the 3 and 1/10 is very easy to convert because it's already in 1/10. So we write it just like we say it. The first decimal place after the decimal point is the tenth, so 3 1/10 is 3.1. This first one, however, we had a 5 down here, so we needed to multiply by 10 to get to a power of 10. So we need to multiply by 2 to get to a power of 10, so we have to do the same thing up here. So now we have 4 8/10, which we write like this, 4 8/10, because this is in the tenths column. Because we were trying to figure out how much paint he needed together, how much he needed in total, we were adding. So we added down. 8 plus 1 is 9, 4 plus 3 is 7. 7.9 gallons is what we came up with, and if we look back to our estimate, it is almost 8, which is what 7.9 is almost 8, which is what we thought it was. Last one, Ariana completed some work. She figured she had 78 21 100ths pictures to paint. She completed another 34 23 25ths. How much does she have left to paint? So this is a subtracting one. How much does she have left? So I estimated, I just took my 78 and 34 23 25ths was close to 35. So I rounded up. I subtracted to get 43. Then this first one was easy to convert. We just wrote it like we said it, 78 21 100ths, because the 1 would go in the 100th spot. But for this one, we had to multiply by 4 to get it into a power of 10. So I came up with 34.92, and then I subtracted down, and I came up with, so even if I didn't do my math exactly correct, it still came out to be a reasonable answer. So I believe she has 43.29 or 43 29 of pictures left. So now you have a PDF assignment as well as a formative. So after you take these notes and go back and study and rewatch and really learn it and practice on the PDF and feel comfortable, then do that quiz as a formative grade. All right, that's it.